The DJI Pocket 3 is an amazing little camera, but how do you get the best out of it? I've been filming with it for over a year since it came out, and these are the best settings that I have found to get the most amazing footage from it. And the first thing is to shoot at 4K. And yes, the camera gives you the ability to shoot at 1080p, 2.7K and 4K. You want 4K because 4K is going to give you the flexibility that you can reframe your shots. And for instance, you can turn a boring shot like this one that is static into a more interesting and engaging by just adding a bit of a tracking in post. Trust me, you want to start with the highest possible quality from the word go. And the next thing to do is to choose very carefully your frame rate, because the DJI Pocket 3 gives you the ability to go from 24 to 60 frames per second at 4K. But the look and feel of 24 is very different than a 60 frames per second. And 60 frames per second gives you the ability to do a slow-mo at 4K filming on D-Log with autofocus, which is something that you cannot do at 24 frames per second. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that you have to shoot at 25 frames per second or at 24 frames per second, because that's a decision that you have to make for yourself. But you should spend a little bit of time trying to understand why you choose one frame rate over the other. And the same applies to considering a slow motion, okay? Because even if you have a small jittery movements, you can slow it down from 60 to 24 and get some really amazing looking footage. And you can take this even further by taking advantage of the slow-mo features on this camera, which gives you the ability of shooting at 125 frames per second at 4K 10-bit D-Log M, which is fantastic, or 240 frames per second at 1080p. And although it's locked at the normal color profile, you still get amazing quality that you can then upscale, and the footage is going to look absolutely amazing. And to make sure that all works together, you want to make sure that you use manual settings at all times over auto, because auto settings means that the camera decides what's the right setting for you rather than you deciding what's the right setting. All you need to do is to set your shutter speed at double your frame rate and have the ISO as low as possible. And to do that, you're going to have to use ND filters, because the 20mm lens on the Pocket 3 is a fixed aperture. There is nothing you can do about it. It's fixed at f2, which is great because it's going to give you a fair amount of shallow depth of field or blur background. And what that means is that unless you use ND filters, there is absolutely no way that you're going to be able to expose correctly with this camera. And let me illustrate why that is. At the moment I'm filming at 25 frames per second, my shutter is at 50 and my ISO is 200, okay? Now, look what happens when I remove the ND filter. Everything is overblown, and I would then have to go on auto for this to adjust. But when I put the ND filter back on, everything looks fine and I get motion blur. And that's the big deal here, okay? Motion blur. Because when you shoot on auto, yes, the camera is going to expose correctly, but the shutter is going to be so high that there is absolutely no motion blur whatsoever, and it just looks horrible. It looks digital, and that's not what you want. You want to make sure that you stick to the 180-degree rule, use ND filters, and you get motion blur, and that's going to give you the best image quality. And to get the right exposure, you may as well turn on the Mimo app and use the histogram, because that's going to allow you to have a visual representation of how well or badly your image is exposed. And on that note, use the Mimo app as much as possible, because you're going to get a much bigger screen, especially if you are outdoors, because it's going to allow you to actually see more, because the phone is a much larger screen. And I use this smartphone adapter that allows me to clamp the phone right next to the Pocket 3, and that allows me to control the Pocket 3 both through the Pocket 3 screen and the smartphone, because some of the features and settings you cannot do on the Mimo app, but you can on the Pocket 3. And that in itself is going to help you to get the best image quality out of this amazing little camera. It's actually a shame that the DJI Pocket 3 only has a fixed 20mm lens, because it would be really amazing if we would have the ability to zoom in onto a telephoto range. But you can digitally zoom in and the quality is actually not bad. So for instance, now I'm zoomed in at 1.5 times, okay? And you can go up to 2 times, which is the equivalent to a 40mm lens. It's not as good as when you are full wide at 20mm, but it's definitely usable. And I know that the temptation is to say, well, I'm gonna film at 20mm and then punching in post, but you need to understand about lens distortion, and it's not the same the way you look at 20mm than the way you do at 40mm. And this has to do with optics and the way lenses behave. And it's the same whether you use the lens on the DJI Pocket 3 or an interchangeable zoom lens. Because let's not forget that the image quality that you get out of the DJI Pocket 3 is phenomenal, taking in consideration how tiny this camera is. And DJI gives you 3 different color spaces, D-Log, normal and HLG, and neither one of them is better than the other one. They're all different for different situations. So for instance, D-Log is the one that most people will use in most situations because you get some really nice footage, but the normal color space is also a very good color profile. If you're gonna be in a very high contrast situation, you're gonna be backlit, or you're gonna be moving from a very dark area to a very bright. That's actually a very good color space. And 2 big settings to always bear in mind, one for video and one for sound. When it comes to video, make sure that you always white balance this camera. Now, it's gonna be impossible for you to know what is the right color temperature. So my advice is go to the white balance. For instance, in this situation, turn it to auto, wait for 2 or 3 seconds, and then turn it back to custom. The camera is going to automatically adjust to the correct white balance, but then when you turn it to custom, it's locked and it's not gonna change and give you a shift in color temperature halfway through a shot, which it would happen if you are in auto. And when it comes to sound, make sure that you set the DJI microphone to 32-bit float, because a 32-bit float signal is gonna give you a huge range that pretty much means that you are never gonna clip the sound. And that is huge, because if there is one thing that you want to make sure that you get right, it's the sound, because your audience will be a lot more forgiving to bad quality video than they are to bad quality sound. And when it comes to focus, you want to make sure that you are on autofocus most of the time, but just be careful because it's not perfect. I mean, even autofocus is not perfect by itself, but if you want to do any creative shots, like for instance, crane up shots using a monopod or a selfie stick, or reveal shots where you pan across from behind an object to reveal a location, you want to be on manual and lock the focus to the end frame and then do the movement. And that way you know that your end shot or your end frame is gonna be in focus, because this camera has a tendency to do focus hunting and it's too abrupt and it's gonna throw you off. And it goes without saying that this is a camera and a gimbal, so movement is a very important feature with this camera. But my advice is that you don't overdo it. Just because this is a gimbal and a camera doesn't mean that you have to go crazy. Small moves, short intervals, don't go crazy unless you do city walks or that type of filming. Keep it slow, pace yourself, and then your footage is gonna look absolutely amazing. Use a tripod when you do talking head shots like this one, or any type of a static shot, because it's gonna give you the stability that your arm is not gonna give. And don't disregard using a monopod for creative shots like crane up or G-bomb shots, or even better, a selfie stick for when you do vlogging, or if you are in a very busy environment where putting a tripod on the ground is pretty much impossible. And one of the things that you can do is to use one of these gimbal fit or mini tripods and attach it to the Pocket 3, and that's gonna give you an additional grip point, and believe me when I tell you, it does make a big difference. One of the things that I like to use the DJI Pocket 3 is as an action camera with a chest mount, and you can get amazing looking footage because you can use ND filters, which is not something that you can use with an actual action cam because they rely heavily on digital stabilization. And the moment you put an ND filter, the stabilization goes out the window. With the DJI Pocket 3, that's not a problem because this is mechanical stabilization. So you just need to make sure that you set the gimbal to either tilt lock or FPV, and the speed to either normal or slow, and you run your own tests because what might be good for me might not necessarily be good for you. But that's gonna give you amazing looking footage. And when it comes to tracking, which is what I'm doing now with the DJI Pocket 3, I recommend that if you do vlogging, you don't use active tracking, okay? Because it's just gonna be too messy and you're gonna get headaches because the camera reacts too quickly. It's just a mess. It's best that you hold the camera and you move the arm as you turn. Now, obviously, if you're in a situation where you move very fast, or for instance, you're trekking up a mountain and you can't, keep a steady hand, then obviously active tracking is okay. What I recommend is that you use dynamic tracking over active tracking because that's gonna allow you to select where in the frame you want to be tracked. And that's gonna give you a huge flexibility because you can select to be in the middle and not too much headroom, or you can select to be on the right or the left side of the frame if, for instance, you have a shot where you start on the left and you walk to the right, or vice versa. The camera can track you in that way, and that way framing a composition looks good. And this is, in a nutshell, the best settings that I use to film with the DJI Pocket 3. And I use the DJI Pocket 3 more these days than I use any of my mirrorless cameras, for the simple fact that is such a tiny and efficient camera to use. And if you want to know more about the DJI Pocket 3 and how to use it well and how to get the best possible results out of it, I have a fully dedicated course where I teach you how to get the best out of this camera in 21 days. And I don't teach you just how to use this camera, but about lighting, framing, composition, sound, everything that you need to use this camera for social media, content creation, corporate real estate, and so many different areas where this camera, in my opinion, is the best camera around. If this is something interesting to you, watch this video here or click on the link in the video description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.